from guilty pleasures of Netflix and boy bands
Yep.
to best practices for revenue generating companies. So we've got basically four kind of buckets of things that we're gonna talk about. And I brought up the chat before. We will take questions and stuff as we go throughout. So if you have, I'll say, favorite boy bands that are not One Direction and you want to start a debate with Jacki, if you have questions on any of these particular topics, as we go through them, drop them either into the chat or to the Q&A, and we will take those things as we go. But the first of the four kind of themes that we're going to get into here is around cold outbound and whether cold outbound is actually dead. And so I guess, Char, let's maybe start with you, because as a company founder, as someone who's running go-to-market and marketing at a growing early stage software company, I'm sure you rely on outbound heavily, or maybe you don't. But tell us, I think this is one of those things that like everyone likes to say that like everything is dying every couple of years. And so is this one of those things that's like real? Is it not real? Is this just a normal hype cycle? Get us into this one a little bit.
Yeah. So as a startup, we try everything. That's slightly anti-investor advice, anti-startup advice that you'll find out there. But the idea of, and also that's probably unique for us because we're like 6 co-founders and each one can drive a different function. So we like to call ourselves a functional Simpsons family setup, right? We tried outbound, we tried inbound. And when it comes to outbound, one of the things we've learned in all our experiments is if you head to LinkedIn, you're probably convinced that cold outbound is dead. It's all gloom and doom. I just can't reach out to folks and you just can't make money that way. But we challenged those assumptions. We did, of course, start out reading all of this advice, trying to optimize based on that advice and try to only do warm outbound. Didn't see a lot of success there, saw a few hits, and then realized, hey, let's figure this out for ourselves, right? So with cold outbound, the one thing that I would say is if people have been proclaiming this to have died for so long and they're still saying that it's dead, don't take their word for it because it's highly contextual based on your ICP, where they hang out, whether they buy through referrals, whether they're open to receiving cold outbound phone calls, LinkedIn messages. So take all of it into consideration before declaring a channel dead, which is exactly what we did. So what we've observed is cold emailing has become much, much harder. And what's become harder there is just landing in inboxes, right? Because with all your AI hype cycles and tools that make it really easy to just spam everybody's mailboxes and auto-generate content, folks have been penalized. It's harder to get into inboxes, primary inboxes, what have you. So cold emailing is definitely much, much harder. What still works is phone calls and just not sticking to a single channel, right? So cold outbound, I would say, is a lot harder for us as well, but it still works when you stick to the basics. Don't rush in based on the advice that you see in social media and hit the right channels and mix it up.
Yeah, I guess, Jacki, what's your take on some of the stuff that Char mentioned? Because obviously you see this, I'm sure, yourself in growing your own business and then obviously supporting all of the different kind of customers and clients that you have that are probably doing a lot of different things on the outbound side too.
Yeah. So I think of cold outbound as like a salsa, right? And just because we've been eating chips and salsa for the past 6 years doesn't mean that's the only way to eat salsa. Cold email is the tortilla chip in this metaphor. But what if we blend it up and take a spoon to it and it's gazpacho? Or add some Velveeta and you've got some tel dip. So my point is that the key to selling anything, whether it's an idea, a product, a service. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I appreciate your support here. Whatever you're trying to make happen will involve interrupting people's days and starting a conversation. And that's cold outbound. So while the tortilla chips right now, the whole bag is a little bit smashed. Like no chips can pick up that salsa right now. But I'm telling you, with LinkedIn, with if you focus on connections and commenting on other people's posts and just starting conversations and building, oh my God, relationships and conversations, that's cold outbound. And it's working, right? So it's just the delivery mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's changing, it's evolving. It's one of those things we were talking about Glenn Ross at the beginning of this, right? And actually, I think we've got actually they'll be on their next slide, but we can get to this in a little bit. We were talking about that at the beginning of the call, right? Back in the day, the telephone was the main way that you got in touch and in contact with people. And geez, was that 40 years ago or 30 years ago when that? It's crazy to say that, but like literally today, people are still cold calling, and like it's changed a lot, right? Like you've got power dialers and you're able to leave voicemails, do all this other like fancy stuff that those people were never able to do, but that hasn't died, right? And it's one of those things where, again, is outbound or cold outbound dead? No, absolutely not. Is it look different today than it did a couple of years ago? Yeah, for sure. And will it look different in 5 years than it does right now? Absolutely. But it's not gonna go away, but it is gonna change. And so, Char, you might have hit on this maybe a little bit, but just walk us through. We've got these 6 different things on here, and I think goes into kind of what we were just mentioning about, again, cold outbound is changing, right? As people do things, right? Like things naturally get harder. And so cold outbound is one of those things that's now harder, but it still works. And so what are some of the things that people need to do to effectively produce the results that they want to today?
Yeah. So I'd start with its list messaging channels, right? Those are the 3 most important things. I start with channels because whenever I have conversations with other founders in different verticals, the answer is always different, right? Like I had a chat with somebody who's selling product to CFOs, and their answer is, hey, LinkedIn just doesn't work for me. Nobody responds on emails. I need to host events, get CFOs together, host dinners, get those relationships going, and then they start responding to us, and they're heavily reliant on referrals and word of mouth, right? For us, it's slightly easier because we sell to marketers on LinkedIn. We create good content on LinkedIn, like Jacki mentioned, build the trust, build those relationships, get your brand out there, and then provide useful content, reports, and get your content, and then have your SDRs reach out. They already have recall of your product, of your brand, and you're reaching out where they're active, and that form of cold outbound works well for us, right? Whereas for the folks selling to CFOs, your LinkedIn's probably not the right channel, but that just doesn't mean cold outbound is dead. It's just that you don't have channel product fit or channel brand fit. So I'd start with identifying the right channel where your buyers hang out. And if that channel happens to be mailboxes, like if you're trying to pick up the dip with your tortilla chips, make sure that you have a well-constructed tortilla chip. The basics would be to set up this. I like to geek out on these details because I have a product background. And when I switched to marketing, one of the things that I saw folks getting, and this, I learned this from my co-founder, right? Like most common mistake was, hey, I want to do outbound. I'm going to use emailing as a channel. I'm just going to blast everybody with my primary inbox and then start wondering, hey, why are people not getting my emails? Why is my spam rate so high? So if emails is the way to go, then there are a lot of things to consider. Don't send emails from your primary mailbox. Get a secondary domain. Set up some of the Google recommended policies like DKIM, SPF. I have the list. I'll make sure that I include it in the presentation after the call. But there are a lot of checks that you need to have in place before you start sending out the first email. And don't get carried away by all the AI hype, all the personalization hype, and start emailing 200, 300 folks out of the box. You are going to get penalized, right? But none of this means email doesn't work. It definitely works as a channel. It's just that you need that surround sound effect and a well thought out, non-spammy setup to get into inboxes and get those responses, right? Yeah. And so we've been doing cold emails and cold outbound for a couple of years now. So we started with the lowest hanging fruit, which is folks who use one of our competitors, right? The logic there being they're problem aware, they're solution aware. We don't need to go educate them about the product or the problem. So all we need to do is get in front of them, convince them that we have an offering worth evaluating, worth their time. So start with a prospect list that makes most sense. So I forget where I read this quote, but there's a quote about build a product that's so awesome that even a mediocre sales team can sell it, and then upgrade your sales team to a point where they can sell even a mediocre product. But both of this happens only when you have the right list that your sales team can. So create that list first and then keep refining that list. And once you have the right list, make sure that your content is constantly refined. Right? We take a look at our content every 2 weeks. Right? If it's just silence for 2 weeks and 3 emails, we try to figure out, hey, is it the list that's the problem? Are we reaching out to the wrong people? But if it's getting responses, it's just that people are saying, hey, not right now, maybe down the line, then we redefine the list, right? Because we're probably reaching out to folks for whom this problem isn't real. So we look at the list and then we look at the template. We make sure that we keep redefining the template, creating new types of content, listening to customer calls, coming up with phrases that work best. And then that helps us be a lot more successful with those emails, right? And what you also want to do is reach out to the people at the right time. So you can keep banging at the doors of buyers who probably just implemented a solution like a couple of months back, or they've been happy with the solution for several years. And no matter how good your content is, how good your product is, it's just going to be silence, or you're just going to get a lot of rejections, right? So one of the things that we do is, through the course of our conversations with our customers, we've identified very specific triggers for why people start evaluating a product like ours, right? We know that if it's somebody who's new to the job, right? They're a new person who's in ops, demand gen, just joined the company, they start evaluating tools like ours after looking at their tech stack, right? We know that if they just got funded and they see immediate surge in their GTMR, then there's chance of evaluation, right? So we try to create lists based off of all of these signals and then start reaching out with different templates. That works out well, right? And the other thing, like this, all this sounds obvious, but I genuinely believe that in the last 2 years, we've gotten so carried away by all the AI hype and personalization that we've forgotten to chop wood and carry water, which is just stick to the basics, repeat your basics, and you'll get the outcomes. So don't just stick to emails, pick up the phone, follow up on LinkedIn, drop the email, send a connection request, like one of their posts, and remind them that you've sent an email, and that typically works, right? And phone calls, right? I need to give a shout out to Nooks. We've tried so many different dialers, phone burners. Each one of these dialers have their own strengths, but what worked out best for us is Nooks. Our SDR team loves cold calling now, and it just works way better than the rest of the channels, right? Like, I know that it sounds counterintuitive, but phone calls, LinkedIn, and email, that's the combination that's worked best for us. And if cold outbound is dead, we still don't see it yet.
Yeah, I love that too. The reference to we've forgotten how to chop wood and carry water. It's like the basics are still the basics, and they're the basics for a reason because they work and they need to be the foundation of what you do. So Jacki, what do you think about these 6 different buckets that Chara brought up, and how do these compare to what you've seen your clients do successfully, or even maybe like the stuff that you've helped clients with move to be successful?
Yeah. So what I'm working with clients on right now is to focus on LinkedIn, but not necessarily posting or like gaining followers or anything like that, but really using it to follow the thought leaders that their primary persona will follow, and sending connection requests to those people and commenting on those people's posts. So just if you take 5 to 10 people that your persona loves to hear from, and just make a little folder in your Chrome bookmarks and just bookmark those 5 to 10 people. And every morning, spend 5 to 10 minutes, just go to them and whatever they've posted, do an emoji, first comment, then give an emoji response because it's better for the algorithm. I don't know. Because think of it, the person who's scrolling the scroll has already stopped. You don't have to get them to open an email. You don't have to get to their inbox. Like, they've already stopped their scroll, and you don't have to get their attention. They're already thinking about something. So you can drop in with a more thoughtful thing to say. You don't need a CTA. You really just need to contribute to the conversation, reply to other people in the conversation. So just building, just like going to a house party is how I'm now looking at LinkedIn. And the more you can do to create synchronicity, oh, what a coincidence kind of things, like the early days of sequencing, and be like, I can't believe you're calling me. I just saw you on LinkedIn. I'm like, imagine that, right? So I'm using Teamfluence, is so cool. And I set it up using Make to send me a Slack notification if somebody has commented on something or liked a comment somewhere or something like that. And I can quickly, as soon as that happens, if they're on my radar, I'm going to DM them. So it's more just like creating, like taking the like weird and stilted and salesiness out of the equation as much as you can, and just injecting joy and sparkle and fun and actual relationship into it as much as I can.
Yeah. I feel like if you have fun with kind of all these things, it just makes it a lot more enjoyable for not only you, but obviously the person on the other end as well. Yes. And like you said, you're just trying to create those moments and all of those positive impressions that you can generate right through a channel like LinkedIn, allow you to then, again, with some of the stuff we were talking about with trying out multiple channels in terms of how you do outbound, all that stuff can impact and influence positively those things you do in those other channels. So let's move on from the outbound conversation, because I think we answered that question, which is no, it's not dead. It has changed. It will continue to change and evolve, but it's not going to go anywhere. To now, okay, we've produced some results with our outbound, and now we've got some deals that were working. So what does a healthy pipeline actually look like? Because I think, again, every company out there has a pipeline, and there we have our friend Alec with his nice little lead list that he's handing out. But what does, Char, maybe we'll start with you on this. What does a healthy pipeline look like? Because I think all of us here that are listening in, we all have pipelines that are, at our companies, and we're managing, and we're trying to see what's good, what's bad, what's normal, what's expected. So how should we evaluate?
Yeah. The pipeline question, every time it comes up again with different founders, different investors, the one thing that I've learned is every pipeline is unique, right? Every healthy pipeline at least is unique, right? Like the reverse Anna Karenina principle, where every healthy pipeline is unique, every unhealthy pipeline shares common characteristics, right? So the reason I say that is, before we jump into what's a good pipeline, the conversation that we keep having amongst us founders is, we keep going back to the basics, right? What is our deal cycle for this quarter? Like, how long does it take for us to close an opportunity? How many deals is a sales rep able to handle? So there are a lot of different questions that you need to have a grasp on first, before you get into defining what a healthy pipeline is and what isn't, right? So typically, the questions that we try to get answered is our average sales cycle, what my current win rate is, what our ACVs are, and how many ops a sales rep can handle at any given point in time, right? So take all of this into consideration, look at historical data, look at benchmarks. But the one thing I'd say about comparing against benchmarks is it can be very misleading. For instance, when we started out RevenueHero and then we looked at our pipeline, we kept hearing you need at least 3x of your target, and you need to enter the quarter with the pipeline to be able to hit your goals, right? But with our product and our process, we were closing deals in 24 days, in a couple of weeks, because we run a POC, and then post POC, we get the signature. So 3x didn't make sense for us. We could enter the month with the pipeline we needed for the month and pretty much close the same month, right? What I'd say is, get answers to all of these 4 questions, and then based on that, determine whether your pipeline looks healthy or not. All unhealthy pipelines, like I said, have the same one, or look very similar in that they get one of these 4 answers wrong, or they don't consider one of these 4 answers, right? But every single healthy pipeline is unique in that they have a different answer for each one of these, and their pipeline resonates to that answer, right? Yeah, I would say think about all of this, thinking, hey, is my pipeline healthy or not?
Yeah, it makes sense. And like you said, you gave a good example, right? For you all, based on the way that you go to market and close deals yourself, in quarter pipeline generation is something that just became a part of what to expect and anticipated, and you were able to produce consistent results with that. So that standard pipeline coverage ratio, right, of what folks from the outside looking in might look at, just wasn't applicable for you to, again, produce the results that you needed to produce. So Jacki, how do you feel about, and I guess maybe how do your clients feel about the healthiness of their pipeline? Is it like, let's go back to the food metaphors. Is this like a slim and trim looking pipeline, or is this a couple of pounds that maybe need to be lost in a pipeline that needs to exercise a little bit to get back to healthy?
Yeah. So usually unhealthy pipelines are the result of usually executive leadership infighting, or like the end users don't actually know what they're doing, right? Or I was at a company once where the AEs wouldn't accept any of the BDR's leads unless they were certain it was going to close, because they were judged and comped on their close rate. And they were so unaware that 100% close rate is actually terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are you doing? So there's a really great way that I love to use the winning by design, the bow tie. It has just some really great benchmarks about volume, conversion, time, that you can take a look at what's going on in your company versus benchmark, because it's going to look very different at a 150K enterprise deal versus 5K a month, flipping hamburgers sort of thing. But usually I don't really need to dig so much into the cycles or the win rates. It's usually very apparent from the dispositions of the end users and what people are talking about, because it's usually some sort of people organization alignment issue.
Yeah. So we have a question here, and this is one of those from Seth, pipeline related. He's asking about the definition or formula to calculate win rate, and the fact that he's seen this done differently at various companies. And what I will say is, for me, I know as I was getting started in, call it, revenue operations, business operations, I found the fact that people calculated this differently quite astonishing, because to me it seems like there's only one way to do it, and it's total closed deals, right? That's your denominator, and then your numerator is the deals of that were closed won over the same time period, and that's your win rate. But I came to learn very quickly that like companies can come up with whatever definition they want for win rates. So Jacki, maybe let's start with you. How do you calculate win rates for your clients, and is there some variation for clients?
So usually the variation is when are we counting something as an opportunity?
As qualified. Yep.
Yeah. So usually it's the sales accepted lead or sales opportunity, and it's usually not the first stage of an opportunity. It's usually stage 2, right?
Yeah.
And so it's usually that. But I will say, all of the standard things that everybody should know, churn and NRR and all those things, like, you'd be actually shocked. There is no same page that we're all on. So if you're hearing this now and you have a minute, maybe just create a data dictionary and see if your definition and whatever the Salesforce definition and finances definition, maybe are they the same? I bet they're not. I will find, while Chara's speaking, I'll find there's the Open SaaS Institute. There's like a data dictionary. I'll find that. But something I found out, and I was like, wait a minute, are we not on the same page actually? And it was mind blowing.
And what you described makes sense to me in terms of, like, you want to make sure that you're looking at, again, closed won or closed loss deals that were considered qualified pipeline, and understanding that some companies that might mean just like any op that gets created because maybe you leverage things that are not opportunity stages for some of the pre-qualified stuff. But like, I know for us and for a lot of other companies, it just makes sense, and it's easier to say, okay, stage 0 or stage 1 are like the pre-qualification stages, right? Like where there's a meeting and stuff taking place, and then maybe like stage 2, stage 3, that's when like they're qualified. And so in that case, though, it's still you're taking all of your closed deals that have entered that qualified stage, and you're looking at closed won overall of closed won plus closed loss. So Chara, let's have you answer that question before we move on.
Yeah, I think the S2 is pretty consistent, but the one thing that's different for us is by virtue of the product that we're building, for us, S2s are already booked meetings on sales teams' calendars, right? Not just like sales qualified leads. So we pretty much look at total number of S2 contacts that we have, and then look at how many we're closing out of that, and then define that as the win rate, right? So pretty consistent there. But to add to Jacki's point about different definitions, one of the things that I was really surprised at was if you look at public company definitions of ARR, like annual recurring revenue, you'd just be surprised how many definitions there are, right? So there's a Jason Lemkin post where he just puts out different definitions of ARR from different public companies, and then you're like, what even is real anymore? There's some that say, hey, I'll just multiply last quarter's revenue by 4, even if I've not collected yet. Some measure it on collections. Yeah, I just don't think you can keep up with acronyms anymore. So just define your own and stick to it.
Yeah. And I think we do have, Char, you do have a pipeline tracking template I think you're going to share with everyone, right? That's will be a spreadsheet template. Will look like this. So we'll get that to everyone after this as well. This can be one of those things that can help you with the pipeline management aspect. And two other things we want to get into in the last 20 minutes or so. So next, so we've gone from outbound, some top of funnel stuff, to pipeline and how to look at the healthy pipeline. The next stage is you actually want to make sure that people you're closing and the folks that you're attracting are the right customers, right? That not everyone is a ideal fit. And even just because someone will buy or wants to buy from you does not necessarily mean that they should. And I think, Charles, we'll start with you. You've got a couple of things on here about how to, actually ensure you're attracting the right customers. So talk us through some of these things.
Yeah. I'll go back to ICPs and lists again, right? Like for real estate, it's location. For customers in SaaS, it's lists, right? So as a founder, one of the things that I've learned running GTM is ICP definition is really hard, because when we had the conversation first, whenever somebody asked me, hey, who do you think your ICPs? I was like, hey, anybody who has a SaaS product, of course I can sell to all of them. Why can't I? The whole world's my oyster, and that kind of attitude, which is natural, right? Like you want to believe that your product solves problems for every SaaS company out there or everybody who uses software, but you'll quickly learn, and pretty painfully learn, that's not true. By refining your ICP based on calls where you get that, hell yeah, I want this product reaction, versus, yeah, looks good, maybe down the line, not a priority right now. People who push your product, push your quality once they've bought, right? If you have somebody who's bought, who's passive for 12 months, hasn't even logged in a couple of times, that's a red flag right there. So use all of that. Define your ICP. You ideally want to get to a point where you're able to say, hey, this is the one persona in this size of company that I can sell to, and I can sell to well, and identify when that happens, right? Like we've had so many of the personas, right? But then they're just stopping either to write a report or just to do due diligence. So figure out whether your evaluations are happening at the right time, ask the right questions, and then whether you have the right customer that you need. If not, you're just looking at really long sales cycles. Your sales team's motivation takes a hit because they're not sure what's going on. Everything else seems right. Then they take it on themselves, thinking, hey, this is probably on me. I'm not doing something right. Okay? And one of the things that we did at Freshworks, which worked out really well, from an outbound perspective, right? You have inbound prospects coming in, buying a product. You need to figure out who the right fit is. And you also have SDRs bringing on deals and getting meetings in your AE's calendars. So one of the things that worked out really well there is whenever we closed a customer, the SDR and the AE own the upgrades for that customers for the next 3 months, which meant they also own the downgrade from that customers for the next 3 months, right? What this naturally forced is, if you force fitted a deal where somebody didn't really need the product, but you wanted to meet your quota and you just pushed it through, you'll quickly see them churning, you'll quickly see them reducing seats, and that automatically takes a hit on attainment. So we saw quality automatically go up in terms of attracting the right customers, where SDRs were SDRs and AEs were conscious of qualifying really well to make sure that their attainment doesn't take a hit, because they know that in a quarter, you'll really know whether the customer needs a product or not. So from the outbound perspective, you want to incentivize a sales team to sell to the right people. And also as founders, stop pushing for those end of month, end of quarter purchases, because sometimes customers just need time. If you're just going to keep pushing a team saying, hey, we need to hit quota, get them to sign, now we'll take care of the implementation requirements later, you're going to get junk, right? So it's not just a sales team pushing things, it's also you as founders trying to have a healthy board conversation, pushing junk into your own customer list, right? And like I said, you use all of this to understand who that ideal customer is. Don't just rely on one huge list that gathers dust over time and then keep blaming a sales team for why you're not seeing closures, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things you hit on that is important is, again, make sure you've got this kind of flywheel and connection from marketing through to sales, through to CS and product, and then back into marketing. You want to make sure that obviously you're collecting data through your selling process to understand where there are, really big pain points and who those people are, so that data can make its way back to marketing and you can find more of those people. But there's another hurdle, which is the folks that buy and then ultimately use your product, right? Naturally, you're not going to have 100% success with all of those people. And so leverage the things that you learn there to, again, market to the right people and make sure that you're attracting the right people. So Jacki, what would you add to this and stuff that Chara mentioned?
Yeah, this topic is actually one of the things that I need to work on more and more, is because once I find something that works, I'm bored. I want to find something else that works. No, you can't do that. I really need to be way more disciplined, where it's 95% of what I'm focused on or what the business is focused on should be doubling, tripling, 10xing down on what has worked. And maybe 5% or maybe one person running some experiments or testing or something, because I see it time and again, like companies, they'll be barely at 250K ARR and they're like, should we come up with a partner program? It's no, you should not, actually.
Not until you're trying to figure out some stuff that works better.
Yeah, you got to earn the right. Think of every go-to-market motion or like micro strategy. That's its own startup. So you can't have 7 startups right now. You have one at a time. And once you're at like 8 or 9 million, it is predictable. It is like stackable units of revenue. Then you can have someone go experiment and have fun trying to find, should we go enterprise or partnership or PLG, whatever it is. But this is the biggest thing. And this is, I yell at founders and sales leaders all the time. I'm like, you have no business. You have no business trying to do something else when you don't even know what your exit criteria for your sales process stages. Are you kidding me right now?
Don't spread too thin. Experiment like Chara and you mentioned, right? Experiment like with your ICP in terms of who are the people that are going to be the champions, the people that get really excited about your product. That does not mean experiment with all the possibilities of different go-to-market motions to figure that out. Like you said, we'll do a partnership program and we'll do PLG and we'll do sales led and we'll do all this other stuff when you haven't
start a community, because that's easy. That doesn't need effort or anything, right, Matt? I'm sure you can attest to that.
When you haven't even figured out who your core buyer is, right? So make sure focus is key for sure. Run experiments in the right way and just make sure again that you've got basically a kind of continuous loop of connection from marketing to sales to success and product back up to marketing, and that'll help you get to the right people. All right, and so the last topic here in the last couple of minutes, talking about forecasting. And so again, we've gone from outbound to pipeline to attracting the right customers, and now is basically being able to just have some of that predictability, the ability to understand where you're at and call your number, right? So that the board's not surprised, so that your leadership team's not surprised. And so when it comes to the forecast call. Chara, start us out here, right? We've got dogs sniffing out so what are some of the things that cause these surprises, and then what can you do to avoid them?
Yeah, we learned this the hard way, right? As founders, and especially folks with a strong product background, it's very easy to be very confident that hey, if somebody's talking to us, they're going to buy, right? Because you just don't want to double guess yourself. Matt, if you just go back to the slide, I think you can scroll down for the question. One of the things that we learned the hard way was to have conversations with your sales folks, and it's a muscle to build. Because one of the things that you need to do is not just ask them, hey, how does this deal look? Will it close this quarter? But get into second layer, third layer details of things like, hey, if this deal falls through, why would it be? And why are they actually evaluating us right now? What is the actual trigger for them to evaluate our product? And why do you think we're better than our competitor? Why are we on the short list? Just get uncomfortable with the questions. But the one thing to be very careful about is not to make it sound like you're questioning your sales team's intelligence, because it's very easy to come across like that, saying, hey, I don't think why they'll close. But at the same time, you need to keep gut checking, because happy years is the worst thing that you want to have, especially in competitive deals, when your product is early. There was a really great post VP from HubSpot who built out a sales team of up to 40 reps, where she just shared exactly the questions that she asks and helps her unravel whether the deal passes the sniff test, right? As founders, as revenue leaders, in your forecasting calls, just go through those questions. And the moment you start getting opinions, right? The sales replicate, I'm sure these heroes, I just feel like they'll buy. I don't have objective answers based on quotes from the customers. One of the things that I love asking is, what exactly did they say that makes you this confident? Right? Why are they excited about the product? The moment you start hearing opinions about why you're going to win the deal, I would not put it in the forecast, right? I would be pretty iffy about that particular deal. You want solid proof points. You want solid triggers that align with what you've learned over the months. So just get uncomfortable, get to the second layer, third layer questions, and then decide whether you add that deal to your forecast, right? And there's a link to the post that is part of the presentation. It's pretty comprehensive. We just use that as the template for our forecast meetings these days.
Yeah, I love it. Jacki, what are some of the things that you've seen work well and not work on forecasting side with your clients?
Yeah, what I've seen that doesn't work is it's almost like the forecast call is the only sort of coaching or group call that's happening on a regular basis. And it's almost like the sales reps are like fighting for their lives, like defending a deal. And that's not a recipe for like stability. So it's almost, let's not really manage or coach to the forecast. The goal of the forecast should be accuracy, not like hitting anything. If you're over forecast, that's actually bad news, like for customer success. So you're going for accuracy. And when it comes to managing and leading your team, let's focus on leading indicators, or not, because the forecast, it's way too fragile. It's like it's your W-2. Let's focus on what we're doing right now. Let's do some deal reviews and deal coaching and call coaching, and let's build deals that are solid for a forecast. I don't know if I'm really explaining myself, but I think you get what I'm saying. So if you have a better way to say that, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think one, like you said, the goal of the forecast, focus on accuracy for calling your number, not making sure that your forecast allows you to hit your number, because those two things compete with each other. And then, like the whole idea of providing coaching should be, and guidance on deals should be built into your day-to-day, week-to-week process. It should not be something that just revolves around the month or the quarterly forecast call, because that's too infrequent. And then, like you said, you're just producing this very like high pressure environment for people, where especially if your forecast now is aimed at hitting the number and not the accuracy side, then like everyone's like, that pressure just gets ramped up, right? Where it doesn't need to be. It's hard, but
way easier said than done. Way easier said than done.
It makes sense. I think, like, Char, you brought up some good points on how to be consistent with those kind of deal inspections and those things that ultimately contribute to the forecast. I think, Jackie, you brought up that same fact of be consistent with your coaching. Do not have it revolve around just the forecast call. And then again, focus your forecast call on being accurate as the number one goal, not whether, don't jeopardize accuracy just to be able to hit your number and then have a very inaccurate forecast. Because again, like calling a number to hit your target is not going to magically make you hit your number. Again, that may sound obvious, but it's something that we
the responsible thing to do if you're not going to close anything this quarter, give me a 0, because if you give me something else, you're jeopardizing my job.
Yeah. And then again, just be clear on why, right? Yeah. Jackie, Chara, thank you very much for dropping some knowledge bombs on all things from, again, cold outbound to healthy pipeline to forecasting, along with our love for things like One Direction and our guilty pleasures of YouTube channels as well that Chara shared. So it was a lot of fun hanging out, chatting for the last hour or so. Chara and the crew will follow up with everybody with slides, templates, some of the other stuff that we talked about, those LinkedIn posts. And then this will be recorded, put up on our website in the next couple of weeks as well, if anyone wants to come back and revisit it. And then obviously you can connect with Chara and Jackie on LinkedIn. Both are also in the RevOps Co-op Slack group if you want to connect and chat with them there. But with that, I will let you all run. And when you log off, you should get a survey to fill out from Zoom, just looking for some feedback from this webinar. So if you could fill that out, that would be awesome as well. But with that, I'll let you run. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Hey, folks.
See ya.